Welcome to Episode 8 in our Get It Done Certified AWS Certified Solutions Architect Associate SAA-C03 playlist. Today we continue with questions 71 through 80. Pause whenever you need more time before the answer is revealed. Question 71. A company owns an asynchronous API that is used to ingest user requests, and based on the request type, dispatch requests to the appropriate microservice for processing. The company is using Amazon API Gateway to deploy the API front end, and an AWS Lambda function that invokes Amazon DynamoDB to store user requests before dispatching them to the processing microservices. The company provisioned as much DynamoDB throughput as its budget allows, but the company is still experiencing availability issues and is losing user requests. Option A. Add throttling on the API gateway with server-side throttling limits. Option B. Use DynamoDB Accelerator, DAX, and Lambda to buffer writes to DynamoDB. Option C. Create a secondary index in DynamoDB for the table with the user requests. Option D. Use the Amazon Simple Queue service, Amazon SQS, Queue and Lambda to buffer writes to DynamoDB. The correct answer is D. Use the Amazon Simple Queue service, Amazon SQS, Queue and Lambda to buffer writes to DynamoDB. Explanation. SQS can decouple the request inflow from DynamoDB writes and absorb bursty traffic to avoid throttling or lost requests. Why not option A? API gateway throttling would suppress traffic but not solve the underlying database write bottleneck. Why not option B? DAX optimizes read performance, not writes. Why not option C? Secondary index, useful for query flexibility but does not reduce write pressure. Question 72. A company needs to move data from an Amazon EC2 instance to an Amazon S3 bucket. The company must ensure that no API calls and no data are routed through public internet routes. Only the EC2 instance can have access to upload data to the S3 bucket. Option A. Create an interface VPC endpoint for Amazon S3 in the subnet where the EC2 instance is located. Attach a resource policy to the S3 bucket to only allow the EC2 instance's IAM role for access. Option B. Create a gateway VPC endpoint for Amazon S3 in the availability zone where the EC2 instance is located. Attach appropriate security groups to the endpoint. Attach a resource policy to the S3 bucket to only allow the EC2 instance's IAM role for access. Option C. Run the InstLookup tool from inside the EC2 instance to obtain the private IP address of the S3 bucket service API endpoint. Create a route in the VPC route table to provide the EC2 instance with access to the S3 bucket. Attach a resource policy to the S3 bucket to only allow the EC2 instance's IAM role for access. Option D. Use the AWS provided, publicly available IP ranges JSON file to obtain the private IP address of the S3 bucket service API endpoint. Create a route in the VPC route table to provide the EC2 instance with access to the S3 bucket. Attach a resource policy to the S3 bucket to only allow the EC2 instance's IAM role for access. The correct answer is B. Create a gateway VPC endpoint for Amazon S3 in the availability zone where the EC2 instance is located. Attach appropriate security groups to the endpoint. Attach a resource policy to the S3 bucket to only allow the EC2 instance's IAM role for access. Explanation. Gateway VPC endpoints enable private communication between EC2 and S3 without traversing the public internet. Why not option A? Interface VPC endpoint. S3 uses gateway endpoints, not interface ones. Why not option C? Inst lookup and route, not a valid method for controlling S3 access. Why not option D? IP ranges, JSON, not used for defining private access routes. Question 73. A solutions architect is designing the architecture of a new application being deployed to the AWS cloud. The application will run on Amazon EC2 on-demand instances and will automatically scale across multiple availability zones. An application load balancer (ALB) will handle the load distribution. The architecture needs to support distributed session data management. The company is willing to make changes to code if needed. Option A. Use Amazon Elasticache to manage and store session data. Option B. Use Session Affinity sticky sessions of the ALB to manage session data. Option C. Use Session Manager from AWS Systems Manager to manage the session. Option D. Use the Get Session Token API operation in AWS Security Token Service (AWS SDS) to manage the session. The correct answer is A. Use Amazon Elasticache to manage and store session data. Explanation. Elasticache provides a centralized, fast in-memory store that works well for managing session state across distributed instances. Why not option B? Sticky sessions. Ties users to specific EC2 instances, limiting load balancing and scalability. Why not option C? Session Manager. Designed for EC2 instance access, not application session management. Why not option D? SDS Get Session Token. For temporary credentials, not user session tracking. Question 74. An e-commerce company wants to launch a one deal a day website on AWS. Each day will feature exactly one product on sale for a period of 24 hours. The company wants to be able to handle millions of requests each hour with millisecond latency during peak hours. Option A. Use Amazon S3 to host the full website in different S3 buckets. Add Amazon Cloud Front distributions. Set the S3 buckets as origins for the distributions. Store the order data in Amazon S3. Option B. Deploy the full website on Amazon EC2 instances that run in auto-scaling groups across multiple availability zones. Add an application load balancer (ALB) to distribute the website traffic. Add another ALB for the backend APIs. Store the data in Amazon RDS for MySQL. Option C. Migrate the full application to run in containers. Host the containers on Amazon Elastic Kubernetes Service, Amazon EKS. Use the Kubernetes cluster autoscaler to increase and decrease the number of pods to process bursts in traffic. Store the data in Amazon RDS for MySQL. Option D. Use an Amazon S3 bucket to host the website's static content. Deploy an Amazon Cloud Front distribution. Set the S3 bucket as the origin. Use Amazon API Gateway and AWS Lambda functions for the backend APIs. Store the data in Amazon DynamoDB. The correct answer is D. Use an Amazon S3 bucket to host the website's static content. Deploy an Amazon Cloud Front distribution. Set the S3 bucket as the origin. Use Amazon API Gateway and AWS Lambda functions for the backend APIs. Store the data in Amazon DynamoDB. Explanation. This is a highly scalable, serverless architecture with low latency and minimal operational overhead. Why not option A? S3 buckets in Cloud Front for orders. Not suitable for order processing logic. S3 can't process backend logic. Why not option B? EC2 and ALB. increases operational burden and scaling effort. Why not option C, X and RDS? Too complex for a single product per day website. Question 75. A company offers a food delivery service that is growing rapidly. Because of the growth, the company's order processing system is experiencing scaling problems during peak traffic hours. The current architecture includes the following: a group of Amazon EC2 instances that run in an Amazon EC2 auto scaling group to collect orders from the application, another group of EC2 instances that run in an Amazon EC2 auto scaling group to fulfill orders. The order collection process occurs quickly, but the order fulfillment process can take longer. Data must not be lost because of a scaling event. Option A. Use Amazon Cloud Watch metrics to monitor the CPU of each instance in the auto scaling groups. Configure each auto scaling group's minimum capacity according to peak workload values. Option B. Use Amazon Cloud Watch metrics to monitor the CPU of each instance in the auto scaling groups. Configure a CloudWatch alarm to invoke an Amazon Simple Notification Service, Amazon SNS, topic that creates additional auto scaling groups on demand. Option C. Provision 2 Amazon Simple Queue Service, Amazon SQS queues, one for order collection and another for order fulfillment. Configure the EC2 instances to poll their respective queue. Scale the auto scaling groups based on notifications that the queues send. Option D. Provision 2 Amazon Simple Queue Service, Amazon SQS queues, one for order collection and another for order fulfillment. Configure the EC2 instances to poll their respective queue. Create a metric based on a backlog per instance calculation. Scale the auto scaling groups based on this metric. The correct answer is D. Provision 2 Amazon Simple Queue Service, Amazon SQS queues, one for order collection and another for order fulfillment. Configure the EC2 instances to poll their respective queue. Create a metric based on a backlog per instance calculation. Scale the auto scaling groups based on this metric. Explanation. Backlog per instance is a precise metric for scaling consumers based on queue load, ensuring elasticity and no data loss. Why not option A, minimum capacity set to peak, inefficient and costly for non-peak times? Why not option B, SNS triggering new auto scaling groups, adds unnecessary complexity and duplication? Why not option C, notifications to scale, less precise than backlog per instance metric, may over/underscale? Question 76. A company hosts multiple production applications. One of the applications consists of resources from Amazon EC2, AWS Lambda, Amazon RDS, Amazon Simple Notification Service, Amazon SNS, and Amazon Simple Queue Service, Amazon SQS, across multiple AWS regions. All company resources are tagged with a tag name of application and a value that corresponds to each application. A solutions architect must provide the quickest solution for identifying all of the tagged components. Option A. Use AWS CloudTrail to generate a list of resources with the application tag. Option B. Use the AWS CLI to query each service across all regions to report the tagged components. Option C. Run a query in Amazon CloudWatch, logs insights to report on the components with the application tag. Option D. Run a query with the AWS Resource Groups Tag Editor to report on the resources globally with the application tag. The correct answer is D. Run a query with the AWS Resource Groups Tag Editor to report on the resources globally with the application tag. Explanation. Resource Group's Tag Editor allows querying tagged resources across regions and services quickly and centrally. Why not option A? Cloud Trail tracks API activity, not designed for resource inventory queries. Why not option B? CLI queries across all services/regions, time-consuming and inefficient. Why not option C? CloudWatch logs insights, logs data, not meant for querying resource metadata like tags. Question 77. A company needs to export its database once a day to Amazon S3 for other teams to access. The exported object size varies between 2 GB and 5 GB. The S3 access pattern for the data is variable and changes rapidly. The data must be immediately available and must remain accessible for up to 3 months. The company needs the most cost-effective solution that will not increase retrieval time. Option A, S3 Intelligent Tiering. Option B, S3 Glacier Instant Retrieval. Option C, S3 Standard. Option D, S3 Standard Infrequent Access, S3 Standard IA. The correct answer is A, S3 Intelligent Tiering. Explanation: S3 Intelligent Tiering automatically moves objects between access tiers based on usage, providing cost optimization without impacting performance. Why not option B? Glacier Instant Retrieval still incurs minimum storage duration charges and higher costs for frequent access. Why not option C? S3 Standard, high performance but more expensive without access-based cost optimization. Why not option D? S3 Standard IA, minimum 30-day storage duration and retrieval costs may be higher for fluctuating access. Question 78. A company is developing a new mobile app. The company must implement proper traffic filtering to protect its application load balancer (ALB) against common application-level attacks, such as cross-site scripting or SQL injection. The company has minimal infrastructure and operational staff. The company needs to reduce its share of the responsibility in managing, updating, and securing servers for its AWS environment. Option A. Configure AWS WAF rules and associate them with the ALB. Option B. Deploy the application using Amazon S3 with public hosting enabled. Option C. Deploy AWS Shield Advanced and add the ALB as a protected resource. Option D. Create a new ALB that directs traffic to an Amazon EC2 instance running a third-party firewall, which then passes the traffic to the current ALB. The correct answer is A. Configure AWS WAF rules and associate them with the ALB. Explanation: AWS WAF integrates directly with ALB to provide managed rules for common web threats with minimal operational overhead. Why not option B? S3 Public Hosting doesn't support dynamic content and lacks protection mechanisms. Why not option C? AWS Shield Advanced protects against DDoS, not application layer attacks. Why not option D? EC2 with firewall adds complexity and infrastructure that the company wants to avoid. Question 79. A company's reporting system delivers hundreds of CSV files to an Amazon S3 bucket each day. The company must convert these files to Apache Parquet format and must store the files in a transformed data bucket. Option A. Create an Amazon EMR cluster with Apache Spark installed. Write a Spark application to transform the data. Use EMR file system (EMFs) to write files to the transformed data bucket. Option B. Create an AWS Glue crawler to discover the data. Create an AWS Glue extract, transform and load ETL job to transform the data. Specify the transform data bucket in the output step. Option C. Use AWS batch to create a job definition with bash syntax to transform the data and output the data to the transformed data bucket. Use the job definition to submit a job. Specify an array job as the job type. Option D. Create an AWS Lambda function to transform the data and output the data to the transformed data bucket. Configure an event notification for the S3 bucket. Specify the Lambda function as the destination for the event notification. The correct answer is B. Create an AWS Glue crawler to discover the data. Create an AWS Glue extract, transform and load edl job to transform the data. Specify the transformed data bucket in the output step. Explanation. AWS Glue is a fully managed ETL service that simplifies conversion to Parquet with minimal setup and high scalability. Why not option A, EMR with Spark, powerful but higher operational overhead? Why not option C, AWS Batch, requires custom code and orchestration? Why not option D, Lambda, not suitable for large CSV to Parquet transformations due to memory/time limits? Question 80. A company has 700 TB of backup data stored in network-attached storage NAS in its data center. This backup data needs to be accessible for infrequent regulatory requests and must be retained 7 years. The company has decided to migrate this backup data from its data center to AWS. The migration must be complete within 1 month. The company has 500 Mbps of dedicated bandwidth on its public internet connection available for data transfer. Option A. Order AWS Snowball devices to transfer the data. Use a lifecycle policy to transition the files to Amazon S3 Glacier Deep Archive. Option B. Deploy a VPN connection between the data center and Amazon VPC. Use the AWS CLI to copy the data from on-premises to Amazon S3 Glacier. Option C. Provision a 500 Mbps AWS Direct Connect connection and transfer the data to Amazon S3. Use a lifecycle policy to transition the files to Amazon S3 Glacier Deep Archive. Option D. Use AWS Data Sync to transfer the data and deploy a data sync agent on-premises. Use the data sync task to copy files from the on-premises NAS storage to Amazon S3 Glacier. The correct answer is A. Order AWS Snowball devices to transfer the data. Use a lifecycle policy to transition the files to Amazon S3 Glacier Deep Archive. Explanation. Snowball enables large-scale data transfers offline, ensuring migration is completed within 1 month, and lifecycle policies optimize storage cost. Why not option B, VPN plus CLI copy? Too slow for transferring 700 TB over the internet in a month. Why not option C, Direct Connect? Not feasible to provision quickly enough and would exceed the 1-month migration window. Why not option D, Data Sync? Over internet, 500 Mbps won't meet deadline, better for smaller ongoing transfers. Thanks for practicing with Get It Done Certified. Follow the channel for more certification practice content and share this episode with someone else preparing for the exam. Your next episode is waiting in the playlist.